very first live Doctrine Call program for 2024. It is a pleasure. Of course, I missed you guys, all our friends on Facebook and our YouTube channel, and of course, our viewers on GBN television, and of course, our listeners on K105 FM. It's good to be back, and of course, we do have quite a lot of great programs in store for you in 2024. We will be redoubling our efforts in trying to share information with you that is useful for your health. Of course, we all came here to live and to live well, to live healthy, so that we can all enjoy life. I trust you had a great Christmas and the new year has started very well for you. Well, this evening, folks, Dr. Nixon is not with us on our first program, but we have a gentleman with us. He's not a stranger to the program. He's been with us before, and we thought it very fitting to start the first program in the way we will. Yeah, I know many people. Or many of us, we make it's kind of traditional or cultural, you can say, to make your resolutions and to set goals whenever the new year begins. And so I'm sure this year is no exception. And before we get into it, and before I introduce our guest, I also want to share with you, the importance of setting goals that are attainable. Goals that you can achieve. Don't set yourself goals or humongous tasks that are too difficult for you. All right. So this evening, folks, we have with us Mr. Akim Williams. He's from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council. As I said, he's been with us before, and I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with him this evening. So it's a good time to welcome him. Akim, good evening, welcome, and Happy New Year to you.
Good evening, Godfrey. Happy New Year to you and your viewing audience.
Yes, indeed. Well, I trust you enjoyed your holiday. You had a good Christmas, and everything is in order. Everything is going well for you with the start of the new year. So we wanted to start, to have you on this evening and to talk a little bit about food, diet, nutrition, and everything that surrounds that. Of course, our health depends on what we eat, and also, if we live well or if we don't, of course, it's amongst what we eat, what we consume as well, eat, drink, and so. So I think it's nice to have you on this evening. It's a pleasure. And of course, I want to start this evening by, just going back a little bit. Christmas is a time when people indulge quite a lot. We eat a little more than normal. We indulge in things that are not necessarily too good for us, but nevertheless, because it's Christmas, I guess many of us think it's a sort of not a license, but it gives us a little leeway then to sort of indulge a bit. And so I know many of us would have consumed a little more salt than normal, a little more sweet than normal, some more alcohol than normal, among other things. And Akim, we've started the new year. As it relates to our nutrition, our food, our health, what should be our main focus at this point, or what advice would you give to people who are making resolutions for the new year?
All right, so Christmas has gone and it has passed, and as the saying goes, we can't cry over spilled milk. We never cry over spilled milk. It's unproductive and it isn't really useful. All right, we can work towards making better for the upcoming Christmas 2024. For New Year. Some really, really important things that I think as we heading in terms of setting goals for nutrition, I think is important for us to understand what is ultimate objective that we want for the year? What would we like to accomplish? Many persons would like to be healthier, right? And if we're trying to be healthier, a balance that is where it's at. That's a very simple foundation. So you want to make sure that you're actually following on, that you understand what the food groups are. So having in the for the year already, I realize that many Canadians, they have an idea of what some of the nutrients are. So they might tell you, okay, protein, they might say fat, they might say carbohydrates, you might get it quite a bit, but oftentimes they don't necessarily understand what our foods are. So in Grenada, we have a few food groups. We have about 6 of them. So we have staples. Staples includes things like our grains, and grains can include things from corn, wheat, rice, oats. So for anything that's a grain or a cereal, and then we have our starches. So our staple foods. We have fruits, we have vegetables, we have food from animals, we have peas, beans, and nuts, we have fats and oils. All right. So for the new year, the very, very important thing is you want to ask yourself, how am I getting consistently something from every single food group in a day? That's the ultimate aim. We're not saying have it at every single meal, but we're saying, how can I get it in the day? If we said that we want to live a bit more healthier in terms of setting our overall goal, like we said, the food-based dietary guidelines for Grenadians is where it's at. And once we decide that we know that we need to get something from the food groups, and then we go about doing it. So we might decide, okay, at the grocery store, I might have a bit more money to buy my vegetables and fruits and so forth. Or I might want to not buy as much processed food. Simple, maybe cut back on some of the sausages and some of the extra things I buy that may not be as helpful this year. We may also want to decide to maybe do a little planting around the home. I mean, a seedling can cost anywhere from around 15 cents on that dollar for a seedling. We can some of those to help out. But I think my biggest recommendation for a person who's trying to get started for the new year is keep it simple. Many times we overcomplicate healthy lifestyle and we overcomplicate healthy eating, and we try to get so much variety that you find sometimes our budget isn't able to afford it. Just stick to 1, 2, or 3 items from every food group and focus there, and just aim to be consistent. With that, you can just find different ways of preparing them throughout the week, and you should be good.
Right. Now, there is a old saying, that after we consume so much over the holidays, it might be a good idea to take what our grandparents used to call a washout. Do you recommend that, Akim? Is that a good idea?
So traditionally, I know that this is something that is recommended. I haven't seen any serious issue with it unless that person has an underlying health condition, right? The thing is, as long as we're not overdoing it and we're doing it so much that we're becoming unhealthy, then it shouldn't be a problem. But there are instances that persons, after doing these things for so oftentimes, might I've heard in literature where they attend that persons may have a stool transplant, because you'll know that along the digestive tract, you also have what we call good bacteria that support us in our overall health and wellness goals. Where it's protecting us from viruses and protecting us from other bacteria, but it also plays a role we call the gut barrier. So depending on what we eat and bacteria in our along the system reacts to sends like a message to the bound nervous system. So the only concern will be that, but I'm saying that shouldn't necessarily cause an issue as long as we don't go overboard, is what I would say.
But would it make a difference though? I mean, after you consume all of these things, would it make any difference? Because maybe there are people who are of the opinion that if you do that, you would probably get rid of a lot of some of the old things, so to speak. So,
within the context of that argument, I'll say, because it's not necessarily that's what's happening, because whether you eat it or not, if you have a functioning digestive system, your digestive system will do the work. If it's functional, everything is going to pass, and nothing stays. So the need to think that, okay, if I decide to have it in January, I'm going to be getting everything out that may have said the 25th. I'll just sorry to rain on your parade, but by the 31st, what you had on Christmas has already gone.
Right.
So long story short, generally food takes anywhere from 4 hours to 48 hours, depending on a person to make the entire lap of the digestive system. All right, and so in that case, if your digestive system is functioning, then we shouldn't necessarily have a problem and require a washout. I will say it's more important that we don't do the washout and go back to our same ways of eating, but what is more important is starting with some form of healthy lifestyle change or goal in mind. That's the biggest importance. Start for the year, and that's always the hardest part, eh?
Right. You mentioned if we have a properly functioning digestive system, that would take care of whatever myth that we have regarding all that we consume. Just go into a little detail on that. A properly functioning digestive system.
Well, I mean, most persons would have a functioning digestive system. If you may not have a digestive system, you probably would know they probably need to visit their physician, or they probably need to visit their GI specialist, and if they've gone to visit that professional, they will probably indicate to them that that may be a challenge. All right, but we know some persons who have things like what we might consider to be oh my goodness, I just had a lot of memory. What we might consider to be lower digestive disorders. So it could either be inflammation of the large intestine or throughout the digestive tract. That necessarily may not be helpful for persons like that. And of course, if in that case, I do believe that the doctors and so would advise them accordingly. But if that's the case, you really, really want to consult your health professional. I think we in the age where we have a lot of doctors now and we have health professionals, and it's always a good thing. Especially we have nothing to lose, ladies and gentlemen. Our health professional is just an extra layer of caution in the event that something adverse can happen, because we can make these little decisions, and something negative could potentially happen. We're not saying our grandparents made a mistake, and yes, some of them survived, but I like to say that we're not living in the same times of our grandparents. The environment is no longer the same, the food is not the same, our lifestyles aren't the same, and so we can't necessarily go back to our grandparents' days. And so even though it worked for them, an extra layer of caution would be to always be a health professional. Most important, top priority.
Right, and just to continue a little bit on that, just an idea as to some of the foods that would help us to maintain a properly functioning digestive system.
Okay, so primarily what we want to do, we're going to look at two things. So we have what's called probiotics. We have what's called prebiotics. So probiotics are actually microorganisms or bacteria that are actually favorable to the flourishing of the digestive system. So for example, if you would get it in yogurt, primarily you would get in a lot of fermented food, right? Like sauerkraut and those different things. And you would also get it if in cases where they have those probiotic supplements, those are actually helpful as well. However, that's just part of the story, because even though we provide those probiotics, we know that are beneficial for the digestive system, we also have to. And so quite often as see across persons tend to consume little or no vegetables, little or no peas and beans, and we tend to consume little or no whole grain.
Right.
And so when I say whole grain is pretty whole food entirely. All right, the difference. So if you have a whole grain, we get white flour by removing the outer layer and the innermost part, which is called the germ and the bran. You can buy those separate at the supermarket. When we remove that, all we're left with what we call the endosperm, the white part, starch part. That's a white flour. So you find that if you're doing a lot of white bread, not doing a lot of fruits as well, you find that you're also not got those prebiotics, all right, that the bacteria in, especially along the large intestine or the colon, would consume to support its overall development. So those are a couple of things we want to keep in mind. probiotics, we can get those from yogurt, and our prebiotics are coming from our whole food. So our ground provisions, yes, because there's fiber in it. It's coming from our fruits because there's fiber in it, our vegetables because there's fiber, our whole grains and our nuts, peas and beans. So again, I'm putting a plug because saying having a balance that has been an age-old, that has been said from time immemorial as long as I can remember, right? And sometimes I don't think we are able to connect what having a balance that means with the entirety of the whole person.
Right.
And what we're saying to persons is, if we understand that we're not saying to you to go and try to figure out what's happening, but we're saying by consuming a balance that essentially we are hitting many birds with one stone. So we're fixing a couple of problems. So we're making sure that we're not spiking our blood sugar levels by consuming highly processed starches, which is what we see quite often, right? White bread is in moderation, is not bad, but the challenge is we see that this is the common day-to-day diet of the population. Many things are highly processed. So whether it's white rice, whether it's white bread, whether it's pasta, which is pretty much processed wheat, right? All of these we see can cause an issue if we don't balance them properly. So again, if we want to balance it, we say blend it, but going for fiber and going for probiotics, those are going to be really, really helpful and your go-to for really supporting digestive health.
Right. I think you're very correct when you mentioned, what most people's views on a balanced diet really is. And I think people think that if they have a little bit of everything, that is balanced. So you have some rice, you have some ripe plantain, you have a piece of potato, you have a piece of yam, a piece of green banana, your meat, peas, and a lot of different things. Let's talk a little bit around that, because I think people need to understand when we speak of a balanced diet, what it really means. And maybe you can also give us an example. So sort of create a platter for us with items that would be a balanced diet.
All right. So first of all, a little bit of everything, and I want to put a plug because I had to say this a couple of times today, especially nutrition. Now, the enemy of a balanced diet is not knowing what a balanced diet is. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, what I've seen is that most of us in Grenada, we tend to eat the way our old dietary guidelines used to recommend. And so again, we're going to sound like a broken record with this, but we see that most of us consume way too much starch, mm-hmm. too much carbohydrates. Remember, anything that's a starch or a staple foods, they also break down into sugar or glucose, which is a primary fuel in the body. Very important. So if it is that we're consuming a lot of this starch throughout the day, you find that these foods make up the most of what we consume. Now that has changed. So we're saying that the 2 and 3 part starch dishes at meals is not okay anymore, because now it's going to encourage us to consume way too much of those staple foods. Mm-hmm. So a balance that typically looks like finding out what are the proportions. So it means that in our new guidelines, the largest portion of the guideline would be vegetables, then starches.
Right.
Okay. So that throughout the day, you want to ensure that when it's done, most of what you've had to consume will be vegetables, of course, and those include our non-starchy vegetables. So we talk about green leafy and our colored ones like pumpkin, carrots, and the list can go on and on. So ideally, we say that we can consume half our plate in veg, right? And those are our major meals. You can do half plate of veg. We can consume water, starch, and cut the starch portion and maybe add some peas with it, so that we get our peas, beans, and nuts, or what used to be considered legumes, what's considered legumes in many circles. And then the other part, we want to have lean protein. That's like a lunch. If we do pumpkin and carrots, those are two simple ones that we can do. We can do pumpkin, carrots, and okra. Again, very cheap vegetables. And we're not saying the broccoli and cauliflower expensive. They start cheap and simple. In another case, it can simply be some green beans, some beans, and carrots. Again, simple. You want to have more than one color. You go to lean protein. I say if you do it in drum the tie, you remove most of the visible. You have that, and you can do some rice, and you can do some peas. All right. Typically, I would like to say about a fist is what that start section of the should look. It's an idea. You visualize it for yourself. A fist. Okay. For breakfast, what we can do is that we can do a whole grain, which can be whole, multi-grain cereal, probably whole wheat, right? What I have started to do these days is I've started to mix oats and bran flakes so that we can have a bit of variety, so that it isn't boring. And I so add some raisins in there, add another layer of fiber, so that I don't have any added sugar to it. Right? Also, yogurt and yogurt not very difficult to make. There's a lot of videos on, so you can do yogurt, which is going to give us some protein. Also, going to give us much needed that we talked about before to support the digestion. So that's, we have a staple, we have a food from animal, which is our yogurt. We can either do boiled egg, we can do chicken, and the thing is, I say to process, we don't realize how expensive sausage and luncheon meats are. And those are not very helpful for us. So for the kids, everyone is not a problem. But the thing is, when these become our everyday non-negotiables, having luncheon meat and sausages done up in tomato sauce and all of those extra salted seasonings, and so we don't realize it's not a good habit for us to start. So what I recommend getting some chicken thighs. It's going to be much cheaper, right? If you buy a pound of chicken thighs is going for about $6 a pound versus buying a can of luncheon meat, which is maybe about $9-10 for a can. That's probably giving you about 6 to 7 ounces. All right, you're getting way more than if you actually buy fresh chicken. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, these things are actually made from meat. So why not use the closest thing to the natural as possible, which is also cheaper, and it's something that you can maybe do the same way or divide it to make it more interesting. So we have a fruit from animals, a fruit yogurt, and that's a fairly decent breakfast. For some persons, add a little vegetable breakfast, and that's it. I remember Trinidad and being pleasantly surprised when vegetables are not part of breakfast. To go, you may get some curry body, you may get some, if you go to buy a bake, you may get some callaloo with that bake if it's bacon and cheese, and you will get some eggplant, because they would do what is called eggplant choker, where they would roast the eggs and they would put it up and so, or they would do tomato choker, and these are normal part of breakfast. So I think for us, the biggest part is being able to be open to new things, especially if it gives us the result that we want, and not necessarily limiting ourselves to what we know. Because many times I have to my clients in the community, they might say that they're doing it such a long time, and I'm saying that, guess what? You've been doing this a long time, but how has this been serving you? Because if this is your habit and you present me with some level of uncontrolled blood sugar, that definitely tells me that whatever you're doing isn't necessarily giving you the result that you would possibly like to have. So I want to encourage us to be open, especially for the new year and setting goals, open to trying new things, especially if it gives us the result that we want, which is an overall better and healthier life for 2024.
Right. I want to take you back a bit because you mentioned something. Many of us eat the way our grandparents used to eat. And it's probably not the best because there's way too much starch in that diet. But one might argue, Akeem, that our grandparents lived longer. They lived much longer lives than probably what we're living now, because I'm sure you've heard that people don't live as long as they used to.
So I'll answer this in a couple of ways, because to say that some of our grandparents live a little longer, it's not necessarily true, and the health professional would disagree. Evidence would say to you that you find that people are living longer today because of the advancements in medicine and technology.
Yeah. Right.
So let's put it on the plate. That's one point I want to make. Two, I think it's important to understand, like I mentioned before, that our grandparents live in a completely different environment. So one, our grandparents were way more than we were, and they had to be to get around. So again, I always remember, as long as I live, the stories that the older folks to the focus anymore, and people say they produce after not just coming from the garden in the afternoon and bring all their load down to prepare to go. Many of them didn't have vehicles and had to walk. So because they were very physically active, you find that the starches that they were consuming may have been okay for them. But I'll also tell you that many of the older folks, for example, my grandmother and many of the older folks who I know and see, didn't necessarily make it to be alive today because of uncontrolled diabetes and uncontrolled high blood pressure. So my grandmother lost her 2 eyes and 2 limbs to diabetes. Right. And I have other aunts who passed away in 2021, I believe. She lost her 2 eyes and two limbs, and we're saying that these people came from the same era. So it's not a one size fits all. And whereas some of those persons may have understood the importance of healthy living, and some of them have in fact made some good changes in their season based on good wisdom, wherever they would have forgotten it from, it made an impact in them being alive today. And now, of course, because of the intervention of medicine that you can now know. I think one of the things that we struggle with in the past is not having information. So now that we know a little bit more, for those who are alive, their lives can be extended a bit more by making some simple changes. So the question I like to ask persons is, we can say, you know what, some people say we need to go back to our grandparents, and I ask a question: are you willing to give up cars and give up planes and willing to do that? We don't have a problem. But if you are not willing to do that, it means that you have to now ask yourself, what can I do within the current confines of the society that I live in to still thrive and live as long? And we have evidences to show that by making healthy choices, you can live healthier, you can live better quality of life. The challenge is, sometimes we know it, but there is a gap between knowing and doing. And this is where we have a lot of the challenge in getting into action.
Right, wonderful. I mean, I definitely I threw this one out there to tease because you know, and you were very much on point. Our grandparents, and so they were way more active than we are. And you're right, they walked.
I also have to add, though, Godfrey, I think it's important. Our grandparents didn't have as much pollution in the atmosphere. We have factories, we have vehicles, we have all of these different things, and all of this environmental pollution that's actually damaging the body. So the environment was a lot more pure, but we have that. So it means that if we're not also trying to counteract the toxic overload that's in our environment, just highly processed food, little and no vegetables, because guess what? Our foods live in the same environment.
Right.
Thrive.
Yeah. In addition to that, Akeem, even though some of the food that they consume, for example, like the what we call the ground provisions, and so it was much more organic than today. So there are a number of factors that that we need to consider, in making the statements. But let's take a short break. When we come back, I want us to talk a little bit about budgeting, and compare that with our consumption patterns. So stay with us, folks. We take a short break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Agritech Limited Grenada is your one-stop shop for all your farming needs. We provide seeds and seedlings, pesticides, fertilizers, irrigation and water management systems, veterinary products, and a wide range of agricultural products and implements. Our staff is knowledgeable and ready to serve you. Call us on 435-9677 or 440-4460 or visit us in Happy Hill, St. George. We are open Monday to Saturday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. Agritech Limited Grenada. Come grow with us.
On February 3rd and 4th, the Grenada Motor Club presents Grenada's 50th Independence Invitational Drags at Pearls International Speedway. Speedway, St. Andrews. Come out to see our local boys compete against the fastest drag racing cars the Caribbean has to offer. There will be special entertainment from one of the Caribbean's top drifters and live performances from one of our local artists. February 2nd is the welcome party at Lavo Lanes. February 3rd, test and tune at Pearls International Speedway. And February 4th, drag race finals. Contact us at Grenada Motor Club 473@gmail.com. Grenada's 50th Independence Invitational Drags, February 3rd and 4th at Pearls International Speedway. This will be an epic one.
Get ready to mark a historic milestone. It's the 50th anniversary of Independence Gala Cocktail and Dance, Saturday, 3rd February 2024 at the Crown Ballroom Radisson, starting at 7 p.m. for the all-inclusive cost of $500. All proceeds go towards the restoration of Government House. Secure your tickets now and be a part of history. Be there at the Radisson on February 3rd, 2024, hosted by Governor General Dame Cecile Lagranade.
Tickets available at Grenadian Optical, Melville Street and Grand Anse, the 50th Anniversary Independence Committee Secretariat on the Carenage, and online at gotofet.com.
I'm a VIP. I'm a VIP.
I am a VIP. I am vaccinated. I am immunized. I am protected. Our children and nation depend on vaccination for immunization. Childhood vaccination is national priority. It is their protection from disease and sicknesses. Let's all be VIPs and safeguard our beautiful Grenada. I am DJ Blackstorm and I am a VIP health champion. Be a VIP like me.
Let's all be VIP champions.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs. Be a VIP Childhood Vaccination and Immunization Campaign in collaboration with UNICEF and the Pan American Health Organization.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. in Call and Akeem Williams from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council with us, for those of you joining us late. And we do apologize. I know that the audio is a little unstable, but, these things do happen, of course, with when you're dealing with technology. So we do apologize for that. But nevertheless, I think the message is getting across. So, Akeem, I want us to talk a little bit now about budgeting. And before we start, I want to just share something with you. It's captioned "Meal Planning on a Budget," and it's there are three subheadings: plan, purchase, prepare. All right, and you have other topics like stretch your meals, cook once, eat more than once, check your grocery store ads, think low-cost options, and try something new. I see you're nodding, which tells me that you're in agreement with some of these things. Let's talk about budgeting and planning our meals and so.
All right. Now, to be quite truthful, when we talk about planning and a budget, I have to ask the question, and I have to ask our audience: do we really plan on a budget, or do we plan? So when you sit and you hear a lot of clients in the community, and we have a conversation of meal planning, people tend to have it in their head, right? However, I am sure if we were to just keep the cost for a light bill in our head every single month and not depend on the letter or the mail that's coming from the utilities, many of us would have some challenge with being out of light or being out of water or internet. And so I think being able to visualize and see what we're having plays an important part. So it means that if we budgeting, it means that for some of us, we may need to set aside a certain amount for food. So it's $1,000. You might say, okay, I might set aside 20%, I might set aside $100, whatever it is you're setting aside from your salary. We must first do that. It's important. So then you know what you're going to the grocery store with, and there's a certain amount that you have to spend. So it means that if there's a certain amount and we're planning, it means that I'm not going to get caught up with impulse buying, because it's a big thing as well. Some of us, we go to the grocery store too much, and if we go quite often, we get caught up with a lot of the little deals and the things that are closest to the cashier and those nice little trinkets, and we overspend on those things. So that's one of the things. Two, if we're planning, we have to know the foundation, like I mentioned. So keeping in mind, you might need a protein, you might need a food from animal, you might need peas and beans. You might say, okay, well, I might not be able to afford as much meat as I may want, so I may need to buy a few packages of peas and beans to kind of stretch the dollar a bit. So on some days, I might decide to do a vegetarian day, while others I might decide to add some meat. But you also want to make sure that you're having vegetables quite consistently. So I recommend certain things you buy monthly and certain things you buy weekly when you're planning. So it means that if you have a budget, you know what, vegetables, because they're perishable and they can spoil quickly. Even though I'm afraid, sometimes I see a lot of the lettuce tend to be this quite quickly, which is a cause of concern. You buy them today, and in 2 days you find it looking dark in your refrigerator. We know that those things, we may need to get them maybe once every week, weekly. Go to the market, you find one of those vendors that may have it at a low cost, and you go and you support them, our local vendors. It might mean that you need to plan as well to substitute, so to supplement your budget, but you have to plan. Many of us don't plan. We have it in our head. We say, in the month that I feel like I want to eat this, and then we just buy certain stuff and bring it home. And when it's in the fridge, when it's in the car, we come on a weekday or we come on a Monday, whatever day we come, we look at it again and say, well, I wonder what I'm feeling to eat, boy. Mm-hmm. It means that if I've gotten to this place, it means have I really planned? It means that I haven't planned, and so I'm going based off impulse. And because we're doing that, you find that we tend to sometimes have a lot of wastage. So it means that if we plan properly, we set a budget first, and then we plan and set a budget, we know where the dollar can stretch. And so we know there are certain things now. It might mean if I cook a whole lot of rice, because rice might be cheaper, I might take that same rice and maybe do a reshuffle a couple of days in the week. If I do one rice on a Sunday and I have extra, I can leave it back and make me do a different meal. Now I know there's a culture that some of my clients tell me in the head so often, Godfrey, that with either my husband or the people who I live with, they don't like fridge food.
Or stale food. They call it stale.
They can't eat fridge food.
Stale food. They like stale food.
Stale food, right? But I prep. I have to meal prep if I want to keep on target. And so I take my Sunday afternoons, or sometimes I might do 2 days, and I plan what I want to have for the week. So on Saturdays I go to the market and I focus, and I said, okay, so this week I said, let's keep it simple. We'll do 3 vegetables and we'll do them right through the week. Mm-hmm. So I focus on carrots, I focus on okra, and I focus on pumpkin, like I mentioned before. 3 cheap, very reasonable vegetables. On last week, I focused on eggplants, we did beets, we did green beans and carrots. Mm-hmm. And we had those consistent through the week. Prepare different ways, of course, but you see, because I'm planning, it means whatever I'm planning, it goes directly into what I prepare. So that's the difference. So if we're planning, you find out we can save, we can really save a lot and see how the money can stretch for us. But it means we have to be realistic with our budget. It means if we know we can afford chicken thighs, or we know we can do chicken and fish, we may not want to buy chicken and fish and then buy a whole set of pork or beef that might be a bit more costly, that giving you less amount of protein for it. I see the person's chicken thighs and chicken drumsticks are reasonable cuts of meat, and they're cheaper. Why? Because you're getting more protein or more actual meat than bone. I think people tend to buy a lot of chicken wings, and we don't realize it's actually more expensive. It's actually more expensive because what you're paying for is that you're paying for some flesh, a whole lot of skin, and a lot of bone. Mm-hmm. So for those of us who try to skin a chicken wings, you'll see, or if you've really just had a regular chicken wings, you'll realize in comparison, it's not a whole lot of meat on there. So that's another conversation that we need to have with ourselves and decide what is practical and how can I save and what am I really trying to do. If you're sustaining yourself, chicken breast is expensive. I mean, we're not saying people to go and buy the expensive chicken breast. Keep it simple, keep it cheap. Thighs and drumsticks are cheaper cuts. Those you can get a lot of protein, and you can strip the skin, and it's a healthy option. You can use it for breakfast, lunch, and supper in different ways. You can just remove the bone, saute it, season, and it doesn't take long to prepare.
But
So there's
Akim, I just want to have you pause for me and ask you something. As we're talking meats here, and what amount or what quantity of meat or how much let's say in terms of weight does the body require daily? Because, for example, someone might go, you buy your drumstick and you decide, okay, so I go eat 2 drumsticks or 3 drumsticks, or I might eat a whole chicken leg. How much meat? So we're talking requirement here. Do I need to eat 2 or 3 drumsticks with a meal a day?
It depends. So for everybody, that is not for everyone.
Okay.
Definitely not for everyone. But it depends. Some persons, depending on the overall build, their muscle mass, and their level of activity, you might find that they may need to consume 2, or sometimes even more, depending on what are their goals and what they're trying to sustain. The challenge is for everyone, it's going to be different. It's going to be different no matter who you are. Everyone is going to have a different protein requirement. We may have persons who may have issues with their kidneys, and of course, that we may want to have special medical nutrition therapy for, and so that's separate and apart. Generally, it is usually said that roughly about 3 ounces of protein per major meal is a general requirement. So it is as often as like 1 ounce, but the population generally a small thigh. That's not the thigh with the back, the thigh with the one bone in the center, or possibly a nice sized drumstick without the bone would give you 3 ounces of protein on there. You can also get it from, if you like to do 1.5 cup of peas and beans, that's giving you 3 ounces of protein. That's giving you the equivalent in terms of protein. If you also decided to do maybe, what else? Same 3 ounces of fish. Likewise, or some nuts, 3 ounces of nuts, similarly, or peas and beans or legumes, 3 ounces would give you the equivalent in protein. Now, whereas to the quality of the protein is going to be a different conversation, but overall your body makes the adjustment anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to kind of just get that cleared, and the fact that we trying to get people to be mindful of quantities, because there are some people they eat until they consider what is referred to as their belly full. All right. What the belly full is, I don't know, or they ain't satisfied. But that is something that I think we need to understand in terms of our consumption patterns. I don't know if your belly full means you eat until you actually start feeling that your belly go bust.
Not great.
Right.
I recommend it at all. We really don't want to do that. You see, we want to be, and it's a year when it comes to eating as well, and this is where mindful eating comes in place, because we also want to be able to be to know what we call our satiety cue is, and know when it comes in. When I'm satisfied, not necessarily full, because we have what I call a belly full culture, and everywhere I go I say it, the belly full culture needs to die. If we must go forward and if we must be healthier, we have to kill the belly full culture. It's not about filling your belly. And you see, I've discovered something recently. I've been saying to persons in clinics and everywhere I go, there's a principle in nutrition. It's an unspoken principle, but it's a principle nonetheless. Anytime we reduce a particular food, we subconsciously increase another. Whether consciously or subconsciously, we will increase another. So for persons who decide we may not, vegetables are expensive. This might be a belief that they might portray, and they might say chicken might be a little costly. What we automatically do to fill the gap is go up on starches. Automatically, that's what we do. We have a thing where we might say in mangoes is pot tons down. So we need to, because we have this belief, we eat a whole lot of mango, stop cook, and that is not healthy at all. because of course mangoes are not going to give you all of the nutrition that you need, but instead of having all of those mangoes on one day, we can have them throughout the week and get a nice balance that we're looking for. So I think that's really, we shouldn't be eating till we're stuffed, and we're doing this because we're not balancing right.
Right. Also, there are some meals, and we say that it tastes really good. I guess it's all in the preparation, and so that food making you want to lick your finger, and because it tastes so good, you have to enjoy it. You have to go back for a second helping, because you have to show that, look, this is tasting real good. I had to eat some more.
Right. So those would be what we consider in nutrition hyper-palatable foods, and so they have a strong influence on the taste buds and our behaviors when we come to them. So we tend to see this quite often wherever there is a combination of sugars, there's a combination of fat and salt.
Right.
Those are what we call hyper-palatable foods. Wherever we see those three combinations, so our sauces, barbecues, when we combine them together, our baked goods, our pastries, our cookies, that kind of a thing, those are what we consider our bread. And you might have a good bread, you might say, one slice is not enough. And you might go back and you might have more. But we can have those hyper-palatable foods in moderation. But of course, if we know we want to be aware, and again, it's about being aware, because we must know ourselves. We must know and make a decision and decide, if I'm trying to live healthier because I'm trying to be there for my family, be there for my kids, be there to support people who I need to be around for, I must be aware that, okay, a certain food makes me react a particular way. And so if we're aware that that's happening to us, it is incumbent on us, therefore, to now ask ourselves, how can I manage this? And in managing this, what you find out we want is that you want to either go up on your vegetables, have a nice high fiber staple, and you would have your lean protein. You try to remove as much fat as possible and not overdo the extra sauces. And we can have it in moderation. The challenge is when we overdo is because most of the time those hyperpalatable foods, they're consumed in isolation.
Okay, wonderful indeed. And folks, I hope you're paying very close attention to the information that Akim is giving us, because it's very, very important. And we're doing this because we want all of us to set these goals, or to change our consumption patterns and use that change as one of our resolutions for 2024. Life is beautiful. We want to live long. And so what we eat definitely can determine how long or how short, so to speak, we live. Right, Akim?
That's 100% correct. I often say, from the day you come into the earth to the day you leave and God has called you home, you will eat every single day. You will eat. So if this is a fact and this is a reality, it means that we can't take it for granted.
Right. You just gave me a question there. You mentioned that we eat every day, which takes me to the question of fasting. There are people who fast. I do it from time to time, meaning I may not consume heavy food for an entire, let's say 12 hours or a day. Is that a good idea? And if it is, how does it help an individual health-wise?
All right, so we have a mountain amount of scientific evidence that seems to support fasting as a lifestyle. All right, so as we see this in sometimes with the intermittent fasting community, we see that there is benefits because persons tend to feel a little more revived, there's more energy, the body has time to rest and to really repair itself. And so these are some of the mounted benefits of fasting, as well as persons who fast for religious purposes. And so this, of course, is one of the additional benefits to them. Again, I always want to encourage persons, if we're going to fast, we want to clear it with our doctors and our health professionals. It's very, very important, because it's not the same for everyone. How we start a fast and how we conclude a fast can determine a lot of things. I heard a story one time of someone who did a lengthy fast and they stopped and they decided to just eat food automatically, and they had some serious digestive issues, and it went close to killing them.
Right.
So of course, that we don't want to necessarily take it lightly, but there are benefits, of course, of fasting, like I've mentioned before. The challenge is, especially with intermittent fasting as a lifestyle, it's beneficial. However, the challenge is when it comes to the scientific evidence, we don't necessarily have a lot of data to support it in the long term. But in the short term, definitely we see benefit. The issue is how sustainable it is. And when it comes to some of those, unless it's intentional, because we also have an issue, Godfrey, where, and it happened to me while I was in secondary school, and it's a trend, that as soon as you hit secondary school, is that we're so busy that breakfast is not something that we have time for in the morning.
Right.
So you find that many of us would skip it. Now that's not fasting, but if falls within the confines of missing a meal, we want to put it there. Ultimately, a lot of the clients who come to me and who I see oftentimes at health fairs, and so this is one of the issues that we see with them missing meals, and especially as somebody who struggled with getting weight under control for a lot of years, I realized that, and we have evidence showing this now, that when persons tend to miss meals or skip a breakfast in the morning, it actually leads to increased hunger cravings in the afternoons, and many times than not, you find that clients, when they would come, they would have a binge session. And what a binge session is, they would eat so much because the hunger cues are so high and so strong, but the satisfaction so light. So in essence, they're not necessarily high enough. And what this tends to do for persons, for a lot of persons, is that they overconsume certain foods, and it encourages weight gain. So that's one caution. And again, everybody must know that nutrition and health advice is always individualized. No matter where it's always going to be very person to person. But of course, we do know that there are certain benefits when it comes to fasting.
Right. Another thing. There is something referred to as bulimia nervosa, where people, they consume large amount of foods and then they purge to get rid of extra calories. It is a disorder, but can you speak a little bit about that?
All right. Now, we usually see this type of eating disorder with people who have more body this.
Okay, I think we may have had a little issue there with Akeem. Hopefully, we have that rectified, and he can rejoin us again. Of course, we seem to have been having a bit of issues with our connections this evening. The audio was a bit broken from time to time, and now we seem to have lost him for a little bit, but hopefully he should be back. Let's take a short break, and we're going to try and make contact with Akeem again. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back in just a moment.
Agritech Limited Grenada is your one-stop shop for all your farming needs. We provide seeds and seedlings, pesticides, fertilizers, irrigation and water management systems, veterinary products, and a wide range of agricultural products and implements. Our staff is knowledgeable and ready to serve you. Call us on 435-9677 or 440-4460 or visit us in Happy Hill, St. George. We are open Monday to Saturday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. Agritech Limited Grenada. Come grow with us.
On February 3rd and 4th, the Grenada Motor Club presents Grenada's 50th Independence Invitational Drags at Pearls International. International Speedway, St. Andrews. Come out to see our local boys compete against the fastest drag racing cars the Caribbean has to offer. There will be special entertainment from one of the Caribbean's top drifters and live performances from one of our local artists. February 2nd is the welcome party at Lavo Lanes. February 3rd, Test and Tune at Pearls International Speedway. And February 4th, drag race finals. Contact us at Grenada Motor Club 473@gmail.com. Grenada's 50th Independence Invitational Drags, February 3rd and 4th at Pearls International Speedway. This will be an epic one.
Get ready to mark a historic milestone. It's the 50th anniversary of Independence Gala Cocktail and Dance, Saturday, 3rd February 2024 at the Crown Ballroom Radisson, starting at 7 p.m. for the all-inclusive cost of $500. All proceeds go towards the restoration of Government House. Secure your tickets now and be a part of history. Be there at the Radisson on February 3rd, 2024, hosted by Governor General Dame Cecile Lagranade.
Tickets available at Grenadian Optical, Melville Street and Grand Anse, the 50th Anniversary Independence Committee Secretariat on the Carenage, and online at gotofet.com.
I'm a VIP. I'm a VIP.
I am a VIP. I am vaccinated. I am immunized. I am protected. Our children and nation depend on vaccination for immunization. Childhood vaccination is national priority. It is their protection from disease and sicknesses. Let's all be VIPs and safeguard our beautiful Grenada. I am DJ Blackstorm and I am a VIP health champion. Be a VIP like me.
Let's all be VIP champions.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs, Be a VIP Childhood Vaccination and Immunization Campaign in collaboration with UNICEF and the Pan American Health Organization.
Welcome back, and again, we do apologize, folks. We experienced, or we've been experiencing some little issues, but hopefully Akeem is back with us, and we can continue with the program. Akeem, are you able to hear me now? Okay, we still have not been able to make contact with him. But nevertheless, folks, let me just, I just wanted to share a little bit with you. We were talking about the, of course, your resolution and, of course, considering making good eating choices or proper eating habit for 2024 as part of your resolution and one of your goals, so that you can live a healthier life and of course get to enjoy it. So we spoke a little bit earlier about budgeting and planning and so. And all of that. I think we've been able to make contact with Akeem again. Akeem, can you hear us now? Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. Hopefully we can get this going again. Yes. So I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you all right now. Right. So just before we lost you, we were talking a little bit about bulimia and what it is. So we can continue from there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So bulimia is an eating disorder, and so we see this quite often with persons who see themselves in a different way and who try to lose weight. And so what you find is that they tend to get out of control and they just eat a whole lot of food that they may actually enjoy, and then because of how they view themselves, they tend to withdraw. Now, again, this is one of the reasons why I was saying I was speaking to some of my colleagues this week, and I was saying this is why, especially when weight management is concerned, we're seeing a new shift in the international market where we are being more sensitive, or we're being more cognizant of how we refer to persons, especially when we see persons being, hey, you lose weight. Or we say, you put it inside, and sometimes we make these remarks and make these comments, not necessarily knowing what person are going through. And so what you often find is that sometimes when we make these remarks, we actually supporting someone who may be going through or maybe having, maybe living with an eating disorder. In this case, you find that this person would require psychological help.
Right.
And they would require the field of eating disorders.
Okay, right.
But really and truly, it's a thing where persons view themselves differently, and their relationship with food is altered. Now, we also see it's an extreme of this where persons tend to get overly conscious, and they go for the eating clean, and not eating anything else. And this, of course, again, is another danger. But that's kind of where we would want to put those.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, so we Akim, we're getting close to wrap up time, but just before we do that, I just wanted to just go back a bit and on the, because we were talking about the budgeting, and we mentioned about planning, purchasing, and preparing. Plan, prepare, and purchase. And you did speak quite a bit to it. When purchasing, stick to your list. Yeah, and don't
definitely.
find yourself in a situation when you get by the cashier, you have to pick up a couple of chocolates or a couple this year, a couple that year, and you might be amazed how these things add up and send your bill very high. So sticking to the list.
Especially today.
Yes. I like this one. Speed past less healthy food options. So when you see unhealthy foods, you pick up the pace.
pick up the pace.
Yes.
And also eat before you go to the grocery store. Don't go hungry. Because oftentimes, if you go hungry, we're tempted by little things that we might have while we're traveling back home, while we're on the bus, or while we're in the vehicle. And of course, especially when we see two little items we can pick up, the grocery store can match with the food that we have out.
Yeah.
We want to make every single dime fit and make it count.
Yeah, you tend to pick up something to munch on while you're going home.
Food in different ways, so that healthy eating doesn't have to be boring. One of my clients said to me today, she started on this. So she started on this trend, and she
Okay, well, folks, we seem to be still encountering loads of problems. We've gotten to a point where we're not even able to identify what or hear what Akim is saying. But we basically at the wrap up stage. So just to remind you again. In purchasing, stick to your list, speed past unhealthy options, find the best deals. When you can buy in bulk, it will make a little more sense. And of course, it's a good idea to go back to basics. So that basically avoiding the processed foods and so, which are definitely not good for you. And of course, in preparing, and Akim said it earlier, prep and pre-cook. You can double up on your doubling your recipe so that you have leftovers for later and in the week. So when you prepare your meal on Sunday, do it in such a way that you can actually get lunch for Monday, Tuesday, and probably Wednesday. And please dispel the idea of not liking stale food. I happen to love stale food. Stale food seems to taste better than when it's just cooked. I don't know if Akim would agree with me. Akim, what?
I agree. And you see, many of us we like fried rice, but I've discovered when I was learning to make fried rice that fried rice is actually made from leftover rice. That's actually how it's authentically made by the Chinese. And
Right.
so many of us love a really good fried rice. And so if it tells us that the wonders that can be held from trying different things and really not just eating stale food, Godfrey. I think it's important being creative and taking that food that would have been prepared before and recreating it into something new.
Yes.
Now, I remember while I was at GW Fletcher, that was my nutrition question for my SD at CXC. Restaurant fed dish, being able to take food that was prepared before and recreating the whole new dish that's still tasty, and it's very much possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember my grandparents, for example, when my grandmother made pea soup. The next day, for breakfast, we would have fried dumplings, and that's the dumplings that came from the pea soup. And all of these things.
Oh wow.
Yeah, fried dumplings is really, really, really good, man. When it starts to get a little brown, this is good. Those of you who don't know about fried dumpling, you better try it. In fact, my good friend Andre said to me once, the dumpling from the oil dung, when you fry it, is even tastier than the one from the pea soup.
Oh, wow.
So,
right.
The idea of being creative with leftovers can actually create excellent and wonderful tasting meals. And of course, mind you, you have to remember your portions, right? That doesn't mean that because fried dumpling nice, you're going to go and eat 5 or 6 or 7 fried dumplings. No.
That's what I'm saying.
No, you keep it within what is required so that you can maintain. Yes, definitely. Yeah,
and I think it's important. We have technology. Listen, ladies and gentlemen. Every single thing that you want to try that's new is at the click of a button.
Oh yes.
If you don't want to be on Pinterest, you can go to YouTube, and there's so much cooking videos that we can learn from other cultures to try to make our foods interesting and get creative. It doesn't mean we have to eat the same thing Monday to Friday and repeat. Because I've often thought that as Grenadians, we eat a lot of variety. But after sitting in front of so many clients, I have come to a conclusion that we don't eat with much variety as we think.
Right. Okay, so Akim, we're basically we're out of time for this evening, and I really, I thank you for. And I did tell you the story. I thank you for calling me this evening so that we could make this program possible. I do apologize for Dr. Nixon not being here. She is she's a little under the weather, but she'll be with us next week. So we thank you for staying with us. Akim, any final words before we wrap for this evening?
My closing remarks would be this. I want to make a special appeal to our brothers and sisters, whether here or in diaspora. I think when we look at health and wellness and making healthy goals for a new year, we don't make goals that are realistic, and we don't have a why behind making more goals. So sometimes some people will say they want to lose weight or they just want to feel a little bit healthy, but I want to encourage us to think a bit long term. Mm-hmm. Remember, when we're healthier, it gives us the ability to do so much more, and more so be there for those we love and care about. When we don't do that, it means that we're leaving ourselves to put pressure on other family members, and it puts us in a financial bind. So I really want to encourage us, even if it's one thing that we can be said for 2024, I am going to do different. Whether it be trying to get more fiber or trying to add some vegetables at every meal or every day of the week, let's make a significant, let's make a conscious effort, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be worth it in the long run. For those of us who have young children, please, you want to be there for them. And your ability to be there for them depends on your ability to have life and have health. Very, very important.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much, Hakeem. And of course, we look forward to having you back from time to time. And of course, we really thankful for the support of the National Food Nutrition Council. We're thankful, and of course, it's always a pleasure having yourself and other members from the council on the program to continue to share information. So thanks again, our friends on our Facebook page. We thank you so very much. Yulin and others who always with us. We thank you for being part of the GBN team, the GBN family, and of course, we look forward to having you. Don't forget, folks. This Thursday, the return of Release It. So do join us for that. So thank you, Hakeem, thank you again, and do have a good night all. Thank you.